As the school year winds down, districts across Ohio may have some homework ahead. The work of putting a cell phone policy into place before classes begin again. House Bill 250 calls for such a measure, and it's on its way to Governor DeWine's desk after passing unanimously through the State House. If signed, Ohio would join several other states in restricting students' screen time while at school. In the first of several reports, we sat down with the governor to find out why he's making the issue of cell phones in schools a priority. It's a hot topic among parents, teachers, and administrators.
I would say yes to cell phones in school. Maybe they should be limited during some period of time.
Should our kids be allowed to have cell phones in schools?
I actually feel that that's a great idea because it actually takes away from the kids' education. We didn't have it when we were kids, you see what I'm saying? And I think that it will bring down less violence, less social media, and the world will be a better place, without your cell phones.
I feel like teenagers should have their phones in school due to safety reasons, but I also feel like middle-aged kids, as far as my son, like 10 and 9, shouldn't have their phones in school because it's a big distraction.
A recent study from Common Sense Media found that every student surveyed said they used their smartphone an average of 43 minutes during the school day. They got around 59 notifications on their phones while at school. They also reported that policies about cell phone use in their classrooms weren't always enforced.
I talk to teachers and they tell me that when their cell phones even near the student, it's a real distraction.
Governor Mike DeWine is making it a priority to pass legislation cracking down on cell phone use.
Why do you think that maybe this should be a law?
Well, there's been several bills that have been introduced. The one bill that candidly I think has the most chance of passing in the legislature would leave it up to the individual school. And I'm fine with that. But what it would require is that the school actually have a policy, that they go through the decision-making process and that they communicate that to the parents.
Ohio is not alone in considering this law. Last year, Florida became the first state to legally require public schools to ban cell phone use during class time and block access to social media on their Wi-Fi. Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb also just signed a bill banning cell phone use in classrooms for the fall. California, Oklahoma, Vermont, Utah, Tennessee, and Kansas have legislation in the works to also ban phones during instruction time.
Have you talked to any of the other governors in any of those states about what's on the table and what should be proposed?
Well, I think all the governors are certainly looking at this.
If signed by Governor DeWine, schools would have 90 days to implement a policy. But as we found out, some districts weren't waiting around. Akron Public Schools put into effect a strict ban during the day from first bell to the last. We checked in with how their extreme policy changed the culture and academics. The hallways of Ellett High in Akron are different this year.
You don't see people walking and texting and slowing the hallways down and stuff like that.
This is the first school year Akron Public Schools took the extreme measure of having kids lock their cell phones in pouches and tuck them away all day. Starting the new policy was a challenge.
It was an exhausting 2 weeks. It wasn't easy by any means.
But Principal Kim Sabetta says the growing pains are worth it.
When I go into the classrooms to do observations or just to visit, as I'm walking through, you can see more students are engaged in the instruction that's being provided for them. The teachers don't have to worry about the students having their cell phones out, and then they're focused on the work.
So the kids were a lot more eager to kind of be entertained and here's the only option you have is this social studies lesson, math lesson, etc. So they were a little bit more quick to engage and participate in what we were trying to do.
Something else the teachers don't have to worry about, a different policy in every classroom. One of the big reasons why Akron decided to lock up phones across the board is so that the playing field was level for every teacher in every classroom.
When we know we're backed by administration and this is just how it is, if they have it out, admin's gonna come in and take care of it. It allows us to concentrate on what we're actually there to do, is teach.
That's not the case for every school district. For example, Beechwood City Schools decided to let every high school teacher decide their own policy in each classroom, but cell phone use is prohibited. Just this February, Mentor City Schools also banned cell phone use during instructional time, but not in between classes. Parma also banned cell phone use during instructional time at their high school. And more districts are creating plans to put in place by this coming fall.
I'm not naive. Students know how to get into the cell phone bags to an extent. I know that does take place, or maybe if they've broken their bag, something like that. But we're really trying to handle that right away. And At the end of the day, if they're keeping the cell phones away, then I feel like we've accomplished quite a bit.
Final grades aren't in yet, but Sabetta expects to see an improvement year over year, and she's not the only one.
I feel that I'm more focused in school and getting my grades and stuff up, and I'm not on my phone or any technology as much as I would be last year.
Academics weren't the main reason Akron decided on a full cell phone ban during school hours. It was actually a safety issue stemming from bullying and fights connected to social media.
One of the things that was disturbing was arranging fights, recording fights, posting fights. It was it almost became like a TikTok challenge kind of thing. And we were worried about the safety of our students. And it goes out to social media, so we just didn't see anything positive coming out of that.
Akron Safety Director Don Zessinger says this year they saw an overall drop in physical conflicts in the first half of the year by 136 in the first quarter and 183 in the second quarter. Fights were slightly up in the third quarter by 39, but so far in the fourth quarter, physical fights dropped from 906 last year to 387 with just weeks left to go before summer break. Encouraging numbers, though some parents see cell phones as a vital connection in case of a school emergency. But research shows cell phones would actually cause bigger issues.
I do want my daughter to have a cell phone because I want her to be in a safe place and I want to know where she's at all times.
It's unfortunately the reality of the world we live in.
It's a lot of shooting going on around the country, and I would want to know that my daughter is safe.
Every parent has imagined the what ifs, and knowing that they can get in touch with their child at a moment's notice is comforting, but is it in the best interest of safety?
So while a cell phone meets the emotional security needs of a parent, it can make their child actually less safe in the moment of an incident because they're paying attention to the phone, they're responding to messages, sending messages, possibly even live streaming it. They're not listening to the adults who should be trained to give them directions.
National school safety expert Ken Trump says in the case of an intruder, students need to be absolutely silent.
We have to remember, if somebody's in a school with ill intentions, they have a limited amount of time. If you're on cell phones, making noises, making calls, getting pings, hitting record, you're attracting some noise to a room where someone with ill intentions may not even know that you're in there.
At Akron Public Schools, Safety Director Don Zessinger agrees with having fewer phones in hands during an emergency.
Our high schools have anywhere from 900 to 1,200 kids. We have 6 high schools. So if you have that many kids in one area on their cell phones, that can compromise a tower. For sure, it's going to compromise the ability of safety forces to get there in a timely manner, because now you've got a steady stream of parents racing to the school to get their student, which doesn't help anything.
One of the major reasons Akron Public Schools decided to completely lock away phones during the school day, fights at school that kids were recording and posting on social media. This year, they've seen a significant drop in physical conflicts overall. But Akron's policy of no cell phones, even between class time, is more restrictive than what other districts are putting into place. Ken Trump says anytime there are cell phones in the environment, there's an increased chance of cyberbullying, agitation, and other factors that lead to fights, something all districts need to consider when creating their policies.
Behavior without consequences is permission. And if you don't enforce your rules consistently and for the long haul, then it's just another rule that's out there that's not going to be followed.
Ken Trump admits kids are really good at outsmarting the rules. In schools with lock pouches, he sees kids bring dummy phones to lock away so that they can keep their real phone with them all day. He stresses if a policy is made, schools need to pull out all the stops to enforce it. That's the only way to keep everyone safe. The other big question we see from parents, my kids get anxious during the school day. What if they need to get in touch with me? Nationally renowned teen psychologist Dr. Lisa D'Amour says even kids with anxiety need to practice being independent from their parents during the school day.
But the goal over time should be that a young person can manage the range of emotions that do come up during a school day. I think that the key here is just to not confuse uncomfortable and unmanageable. Uncomfortable is part of life, right? It's part of being a human.
As we await news from the Capitol, we will continue to follow this issue and how it may impact your child's school in the months to come.